We've got a busted brake hose here. Because of this, the vehicle stopped and won't move any further. Oops. Looks like the French Caesar just ran into some trouble in the Ukrainian rear. And in combat, a breakdown like this could be your last because kamikaze drones don't wait around. But don't be too quick to write this machine off. After all, its biggest ace looks like this. So, does Caesar bring more pros or cons to the battlefield? Ukrainian artillery crews spill the truth. Ukraine received two versions of the French Caesar, the 6x6 Mark I and the 8x8 Tatra chassis. This war has been the toughest test for these howitzers. Before Ukraine, French Caesars were mostly used in low-intensity conflicts against weaker opponents. But now, Ukrainian crews are fighting a far stronger enemy in every possible terrain and weather condition. And sometimes, the weather fights back. Take this Caesar 8x8 struggling through a field packed with thick vegetation. There were a lot of branches. One of them got caught and ripped the brake hose. The factory didn't think of adding any protection. Unfortunately, this isn't a rare occurrence. It happens way too often in Ukrainian combat conditions. And this mechanic has seen it all. How often does this kind of breakdown happen? Winter's coming. There'll be mud and frost. This will be happening almost every day. Fixing this burns through valuable time the crew doesn't have. The front line is always shifting, and enemy drones never stop hunting. That means repairs can't be rushed. On average, 20 to 30 minutes. If it's winter and full of mud, maybe an hour or even an hour and a half. Still, thanks to Ukrainian mechanics, trained by French instructors, these guns stay in the fight. Even with brutal terrain and freezing conditions, they manage to keep the Caesars firing when it matters most, and the crews know exactly who to thank. If it weren't for these guys, this machine wouldn't have fired even half as many rounds as it has. They work in the shadows, but without them, nothing moves. And trust me, these machines need a lot of repairs. Show some respect for these unsung heroes. Hit that like button if you appreciate their hard work. The effectiveness of Caesar depends not just on its firepower, but on the entire crew working together, from mechanics to gunners. And in war, that teamwork saves lives. The better they operate, the more Russian targets get wiped off the map, and the safer Ukrainian infantrymen are at the front. And as every soldier knows, nothing lifts morale like the sound of artillery backing you up. Both we and the enemy understand. Our work directly affects the guys on the front line. We know they're exhausted. So when we fire, we might just save them. Sure, the Caesar 8x8 has its weak points, but that doesn't mean it's ineffective. Its firepower alone is a major game changer on the battlefield, slowing down Russian advances where it matters most. It's a good machine, just not ideal for our conditions. It's delicate, very sensitive, but it hits the enemy dead on, and it'll keep hitting. When comparing the Caesar 8x8 to the older Caesar 6x6 Mark I, the 6x6 surprisingly handles Ukraine's rough terrain better. Its biggest advantage? The wheelbase. It makes it super maneuverable. And maneuverability is everything in modern artillery warfare. Once the Russians spot a firing position, the crew has only minutes to relocate or risk getting obliterated. See the damage? Here's the windshield, the doors. 1, 2, fragments. There's a big one lodged right there. To keep the crew safe, French engineers reinforced the cabin and added bulletproof glass that holds up well, even under fire. It's solid, reliable, you can see right here. The armored glass and doors held firm. They protect against shrapnel. For Russian drone pilots, the Caesar is a high-value target. They use a two-step attack, first a recon drone to locate it, then a kamikaze drone to take it out. And this Ukrainian crew just spotted one in the sky. Enemy bird in the air. That's a recon drone, Zala. And if a Zala is flying around, there's a 90% chance a Lancet is nearby too. At $4.3 million per unit, the Caesar is worth every penny, which is exactly why the Russians spam kamikaze drones to take them down. Here's a Lancet fragment. They're made of literal sticks and glue, but there's just too damn many of them. With drones constantly buzzing overhead, Ukrainian crews heavily camouflage their Caesar howitzers and fire from concealed positions. This strategy significantly improves their chances of survival compared to firing out in the open. And here's how that works in practice. Not long ago, we rolled up to a firing position and started working. The first incoming round landed 200 meters from us. No big deal. We kept firing, but then the strikes got closer. That's when we packed up and disappeared underground. As a result, if a Caesar does take damage, it's usually just minor. You can take a look, just some shrapnel marks. Once repaired, these howitzers go right back into action. And trust me, they've got plenty to brag about. The Caesar's 155mm gun can hit targets up to 24 miles away. Think the Russians enjoy that? A Ukrainian soldier answers, "They're finally realizing we can reach them where they thought they were safe. They're not acting so cocky anymore." If you want more first-hand feedback from Ukrainian soldiers on Western weapons, make sure to subscribe to the channel. During offensive operations, Ukrainian crews pushed the Caesar to its limits, hammering Russian positions non-stop. One crew alone fired up to 200 shells per day, double the recommended limit, which risked blowing out the barrel. Personally, I fired 184 rounds that day. It was during the offensive, intense work. But for the Caesar, 100 rounds a day is nothing. Compared to Soviet-era artillery, which Ukrainian forces used before, the Caesar is in a league of its own, and that's reflected in the results. It has automatic aiming. It's nothing like old Soviet systems. We've taken out so much enemy infantry, ammo depots, vehicles, and artillery. One of the biggest advantages of the Caesar is how fast it can set up, fire, and escape before Russian counterattacks land. Caesar can roll into position and fire in under a minute. Wrapping up the mission and leaving takes 3 to 5 minutes. Ukrainians have built their entire strategy around this mobility, ensuring crews never stay in one place for long, which makes it significantly harder for Russians to locate and target them. We operate on the principle, move, fire, move. Never stay in the same spot for long. This hit-and-run strategy pays off, with plenty of destroyed Russian forces to show for it. A Ukrainian artilleryman breaks down the priority targets. Enemy artillery units, counter-battery fights, equipment in staging areas, and enemy infantry. We've confirmed at least 10 destroyed targets so far. One lucky Ukrainian soldier managed to take out a major threat, a Russian 2S-19 self-propelled howitzer that had been harassing Ukrainian positions for months. We hit a lot of targets. In the fall of 2023, near the Shakhtarsk sector, we took out a 2S-19 self-propelled howitzer in just 2 shots. It's our biggest rival in counter-battery fights. That precise shot cost the Russians a $620,000 artillery piece. It was completely blown apart, nothing left of it. But while firepower is a huge advantage, Caesar's real superpower lies inside, in its high-tech fire control system. It allows gunners to enter target coordinates before they even arrive at a firing position. We get the target coordinates, the system knows our location, we drive up to the position, deploy, and the gun automatically calculates the vertical and horizontal angles. This automation saves critical time in combat. It's modern technology. Our only job is to enter the coordinates. I can do that while we're still moving, and the system will adjust based on our final position. And most importantly, no complex manual calculations are needed. The system handles all the math. All the crew needs to do is input the data correctly. The computer calculates everything based on the shell type and propellant. We don't need to do any calculations ourselves. We just need to know how to use a computer. With this caliber, hitting within 50 meters of the target is considered a successful strike. Caesar also comes with 2 screens, one inside the vehicle and another on the back. What's the point of having both? A Ukrainian gunner explains, for adjustments, left, right, up, down. We handle everything right here. The Russia-Ukraine war has become a testing ground for new military technologies. The side that adapts faster and integrates these innovations first gains the upper hand, and Caesar is keeping up. In January 2024, France launched an artillery coalition aimed at strengthening Ukraine's firepower. During the event, it was revealed that Caesar would soon undergo testing with AI-powered fire control. According to Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Defense, using artificial intelligence could reduce the number of shells needed for ranging and hitting targets by 30%. AI integration into Caesar's fire control system is a game-changing development. Instead of just handling basic ballistic calculations, the system could process real-time battlefield data and analyze drone footage for precision targeting. With firepower and cutting-edge tech, Caesar has proven itself a key player on the battlefield. Out of all the self-propelled howitzers we've received, Caesar is the best, at least from what I've seen and worked with. Caesar was the first Western artillery system delivered to Ukraine in summer 2022, and it quickly earned a reputation as one of the most effective systems in the war. It holds its own against other NATO howitzers and outclasses Soviet-era systems in mobility, accuracy, range, and electronics. That said, Caesar 8x8 is not perfect, especially when it comes to mobility. It falls behind its predecessor, the Caesar 6x6 Mark I, in rough terrain. But the biggest future upgrade for Caesar is AI-powered fire control. Who do you think will lead the race in AI-powered artillery? France, China, the US, or Russia? Drop your thoughts in the comments.